Hi, hello, it's me, it's Steven. And today, I have another book review for you. Today we're going to be talking about Johnny Got His Gun by Dalton Trumbo. This book is great. It's great. I love this freaking book. This video is going to be hella heavy, so if you're not into like violence and war talk and stuff like that, this is not the video for you, and you should click off and find something happier to watch because this is not going to be a very bright video. Johnny Got His Gun. This book is probably one of the saddest, most dreary pieces of literature I have ever read in my entire life. I literally couldn't read certain parts in one sitting, and I had to like put it down and like stare at the wall because like I just couldn't grasp how awful this character must have been feeling in this time. And I'm going to talk to you about that and why that's important and why that I think many people today need to read this book more than ever. So, Johnny Got His Gun is about a man named Johnny. Johnny is asleep, or he thinks he is, and then he begins to realize that he isn't. Everything is dark. He cannot hear anything besides a ringing in his ears, and he cannot move. So then as the story is progressing, Johnny finds out slowly but surely that he is completely immobilized. And he says, okay, how much worse can this get? You know, I'm in the hospital probably somewhere. I'm alive, I know that. And I don't feel very much pain or anything for that matter. So let me stand up. And then he goes into memories, flies back into his past, kind of recalling how he got into the war, his life before the war, him having his girlfriend, him with his mother, with his father, working jobs over the summer with his friends. And then he says, okay, I literally don't have legs. And then he has another flashback. I don't have any arms. And then another flashback. Oh, I don't have a face at all. And I'm still alive. And I know I'm in the hospital somewhere, and I can't communicate with anybody besides myself. And I'm in this bed, and I can't move, and I can't hear, and I can't see. I've read many anti-war books in the past, okay? I've read, Slaughterhouse-Five. I've read the things they've carried, right? But this book is just so raw. It's just so human that you can't neglect it, you can't forget it, and you can't ignore it. Once you've read it, it really doesn't leave your mind, and it is almost in a traumatic way. And frankly, I think that's what Trumbo wanted, was for this book to be traumatic and terrifying and sad. Because after World War I, as many of us know, this was probably the biggest war that the world had seen. It was the biggest war that the world had seen at that point. And seeing the men coming back off the boat from Europe, traumatized, brutalized by war and the terrible things that it does to the people who go off and fight them. Trumbo, frankly, just wanted to discuss that. And not in a political way, not in an economic way, but in a human way. In a way that we, even as readers, can connect to. And it's just such a dark book, but one that has not only made me even more of like a pacifist and just someone who just hates the idea of war, hates guns in general. I hate guns, I hate war, I hate the idea of it. That's why I think he wrote this book. It was for the people who promoted the war. It was for the people who said that these young men should go out and kill themselves, basically, out on the field in the middle of nowhere and be buried under the mud. And that they make money off of this. that these wars are only benefiting the people who don't have to fight them and only profit from them, who keep power and retain it that way by sending off young men to go lose their lives in the name of democracy, in the name of your country. But then what do these things mean when you're basically dead and you don't feel anything and you can't live a normal life? Does democracy pay you back? Do you actually get to participate in it anymore? And does that matter? I don't want to get super political in this video, but it's hard not to. When today, and only a month ago, 2 months ago, the longest war in US history had just ended, right? In Afghanistan. And it just seems like everyone's okay with that, right? And it just seems like no one thinks about that. And all those people who lost their lives, innocent or not, what's the point of it all? That's it, man. That's the book, and I think everyone needs to read it. Not just Americans, not just Europeans, everybody. Because war is something that I believe every country has had to go through one time or another. Many people have lost family members, or their own lives and as individuals have been drastically different afterward. This book has even cemented even further to me that rather than sending our young men and women off to war to fight for these ideological goals that our government projects to us and in reality are only profiting from, why don't we communicate instead? And why don't we try to find other ways of solving our differences rather than killing one another and destroying the lives of so many people who frankly didn't want to have anything to do with these wars, but felt the need to. And I know this video is sad, but that's literature, man. And this is why this book is important. And that's why I love this book so much as I probably won't read it for a long time. But it makes us question these things that have, for a long time, for I believe many of us, including myself before I'd read many anti-war books, is something that just kind of is, and you don't really get rid of war. But when we start to ask questions, right, about why we feel the need to do it so often, I think then we can really solve this issue and try to resolve our own, not through violence, not through hate, and not through lies, but through communication, dialogue, and trying our best to mitigate the differences that we have with one another and just try to make this world a more peaceful place for everybody. I know this video was dark, I know it was heavy, but I can't stress this enough. I believe everybody should read this book. It is not very long. It is very easy to read. And I think that anybody who, not only anti-war, but even pro-war, or people who call themselves realists, should read. I think it'll grant us perspective on the many things that happen to these poor people who end up in these positions and have to fight these wars for many of us who never have and probably never will. So I'm going to read a little bit of it, and just so you can get a taste of what this is like, and then that'll be it. So give me a moment. Lying on your back without anything to do and anywhere to go was kind of like being on a high hill, far away from noise and people. It was like being on a camping trip, all by yourself. You had plenty of time to think. You had time to figure things out. Things you never thought of before. Things like, for example, going to war. You were so completely alone on your hill that noise and people didn't enter in your figuring of things at all. You figured only for yourself, without considering a single little thing outside yourself. It seemed that you thought clearer and that your answers made more sense. And even if they didn't make sense, it didn't matter, because you weren't ever going to be able to do anything about them anyhow. He thought, here, you are Joe Bonham, lying like a side of beef all the rest of your life, and for what? Somebody tapped you on the shoulder and said, come along, son, we're going to war. So you went. But why? In any other deal, even like buying a car or running an errand, you had the right to say, what's there in it for me? Otherwise, you'd be buying bad cars for too much money or running errands for fools and starving to death. It was a kind of duty you owed yourself, that when anybody said, come on, son, do this, do that, you should stand up and say, look, mister, why should I do this for who am I doing it for? And what am I getting out of all of this in the end? But when a guy comes along and says, here, come with me, risk your life, and maybe die or be crippled, why then have you got no rights? You haven't even the right to say yes or no, or I'll think it over. There are plenty of laws to protect guys' money, even in wartime, but there's nothing on the books that says a man's life is his own. Of course, a lot of guys were ashamed. Somebody said, let's go and fight for liberty, and so they went and got killed without ever once thinking about liberty. And what kind of liberty were they fighting for anyway? How much liberty and whose idea of liberty? Were they fighting for the liberty of eating free ice cream cones all their lives? Or for the liberty of robbing anybody they pleased whenever they wanted to? You tell a man he can't rob, and you can take away some of his liberty. You've got to. What the hell does liberty mean anyhow? It's just a word, like a house or a table or any other word, only it's a special kind of word. A guy says house, and he can point to a house to prove it. But a guy says, come on, let's fight for liberty, he can't show you liberty. He can't prove the thing that he's talking about. So how the hell can he be telling you to fight for it? So that's the little piece that I want to share with you all. Yeah, please pick this book up. It's not very expensive, it's very short, and it's a quick read, but it's one that I think is super important, especially for our time. And I really do appreciate this book, and I'm so glad that I did get it as a gift. I want to thank the person who gave it to me personally, and I believe that this book is super necessary, and I think everyone should honestly take the opportunity to read it, or at least parts of it. And yeah, that's pretty much it for today. Thank you all so much. I'm sorry for the heavy video. I promise the next one will be a little more light. I just wanted to get this book out of the way so that I can get onto more light and fun books in the future. Thanks again for watching the video. I have been loving the support that a lot of you have been showing me recently. Thank you so much for your time. I know watching YouTube videos that are more than 10 minutes long is very hard in our busy lives. So thank you again for picking my video to watch. I really do love you all. Thank you, and I appreciate you, and I hope to see you in the next video. Peace.